you made fun of those earlier because, you don't totally understand or are able to interpret those. But in the same breath, you'll say like the meta science, or like, oh, I have this thing that's been referred to by multiple doctorates. These are all buzzwords. These are all trying to attach credibility to your argument. But either way,
they're not buzzwords. No. I get to respond to this before you get to go on another tangent. So this is not a buzzword. I am citing something that is directly related and relevant to what I was just saying and to what and to what you already said. You said there is a problem with the replication crisis. I agree. The way in which you address that.
Oh, the Levitical law.
Did he? Wait. You're melting down in real time. Did God or did God not condemn those things? Yes or no?
So, do you understand what, like,
you just got to talk. Now, my response involves a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Okay, so clearly then, God was okay condemning and saying absolutely no to other practices that were completely common at the time. You saying slavery was common, lol, is completely irrelevant because God was able to say no to plenty of other things that were completely common at the time. Second of all, you're saying, oh, well, all God did is say how to treat slaves better. No, I will read you the verse.
Ask Hunter why he cites shit that he doesn't read all the way through, so Ash doesn't have the ability to read all the way through. Not sure if he's just low IQ or lazy, perhaps both.
He's literally taking my talking points. He heard me last night, and he's taking my talking
points. That's definitely gonna, lead to some tears tonight when I log off, but the reason that, first of all, a lot of the shit that I cite, I do actually read all the way through, so I don't know where that idea came from. Second of all, there are some studies that either I don't have the understanding, like the sociological understanding to analyze the entire study, so I go off what the abstract says. People want to act like that's some kind of a big own. It's not. It's actually the correct approach if I'm able to acknowledge that I lack knowledge in some degrees, like analyzing a study and assessing whether or not the p-value equals to a proper sample size, blah, 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 blah. And then I go off what the abstract says, because the abstract is a summary of that study. So, I'll cry about that later.
Can I ask a question from that? Do you have like a stats background or anything like that? Or do you just like, because I know I have like an AP stats background, so I know a little bit about statistics, but I can't say I can like analyze or fully interpret data or studies.
Mm-hmm.
But I find a lot of people who cite studies and who read them abstract or whatever, or methodology or whatnot, tend not to be fluent enough in actual data.
Well, do you
but
need
I don't know if that's the case.
I don't know the thing. Well, I mean, I have a general understanding of how data collection and the methodology used works, sure, but I think this idea that like you need to have some kind of a background in stats to cite studies is ridiculous. It's similar to you saying like, hey, here's how to fix a car, or hey, here's where I read something on how to fix a car. Oh, well, do you have a background in fixing cars? Like, sometimes the reason you read the study is because you want to learn more about something you don't have the background in.
So the difference is, it's like, for me, a lot of the time, the way I see, actually, Michael, do we have more super chats? Because this is a perfect jumping off point to the discussion.
Okay, let's get through these.
Yeah, just get through them real quick, and then we'll jump back right into that.
$5 Crinkulus. Sorry if I said that wrong. Tell Turkey Tom to upload to Tom Dark or he's gay. So what is your response to that, Tom? When are you gonna upload again to Tom Dark?
I don't know. I guess I'm gay.
When are you gonna do it, Tom? When are you gonna do it?
I guess I like guys.
All right, guys. Why don't we get back to the combo that I was just having a second ago with Kyle?
Oh, wait, hold on. One more super chat. What does Hunter Avallone... Oh, this is a conspiracy theory. My chat's built up against you.
Okay, I'm listening.
What does Hunter Avallone think of the Google search United States government paying social media influencers, including the Biden administration, starting to pay for social media influencers around the time Hunter switched?
My contract hinders me from speaking on that matter.
There's an NDA. He signed an NDA.
So if you guys want to ask more questions, power chat, MikeAlberto.live, or you can do the YouTube chat. Make sure to join the membership. All right, you guys can go
And
back
we're
there.
back. And we're
And
back.
we're back.
And we're back. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And obviously, I'm not saying that you can't look at data or look at research or read an abstract or a conclusion if you don't have a stats background, right? They make these things, at least to some extent, digestible
For a
because
reason.
they want people, yeah, to understand them and to be able to read them. The problem is what leftists do in particular is you have a lot of people whose basically moral framework depends on studies that they read but don't have the fluency to interpret. And you may say, well, yeah, but I don't need the fluency. I'm not the one collecting the data or whatever. Yeah, that's true. But to the same extent, I've never seen leftists actually come to bat about any of the flaws that may exist in entire fields. You know, fields of sociology and research in the field of sociology, like Robert Putnam and whatnot, or you know, who's the guy that wrote the bell curve? Charles Murray.
I
These
have
are
addressed
super.
Putnam. I've addressed Putnam.
Well, we can get to that in a second.
And that study was complete bullshit, but I've already addressed Putnam. But hold on, because you said no lefties want to address. Now, first of all, I don't think that I should be considered a leftist because I'm not a commie.
Well,
I'm more of a social democrat.
I say that. Hold on. I say that rhetorically. It's just how I refer to people left of me. I don't mean like you're a genocide supporter or anything like that. I know people who are more left wing have a different vernacular. I'm just saying what I see as people left of me are leftists. I can change the rhetoric if you want, but I just want to clarify. I'm not saying you're a communist, big guy.
No. I know. I was just responding to that kind of rhetorically as well. I'm not blaming you for all this. The thing is that when you say that like they don't want to address some of these studies, I have addressed the Putnam study. There were a lot of issues with that study.
I didn't say that.
Did you not just bring up Robert Putnam?
I did bring him up, but you assumed you moved down your argumentative tree too quickly.
I'm not moving down an argumentative tree. I'm literally trying to respond to what you said. So why don't you go ahead and say the rest of it then?
Well, thank you. I would be able to do that if you didn't interrupt me so quickly. And I know I can speak for a long amount of time, but I promise it's all worth listening to. So it's not that people don't actually argue about the studies. It's not that people on the left don't actually look or try and debunk right-wing studies. It's that they tend not to go to bat regarding issues in the field as a whole. They tend not to concern themselves a lot with a replication crisis. They tend not to concern themselves with publication crises. They tend not even to look at crises or issues within their own research, like we've seen in plenty of times in the systemic racism debate. There are abstracts or conclusions that may say that there's some takeaway that may not even be represented by the data that was collected. We find this a lot, actually, where in order to get research actually published in journals, professors or the people collecting the data need to skew it or need to write in a political prescription that is more left-wing in order for it to be palatable. And this is actually what Robert Putnam did. He spends most of E Pluribus Unum talking about, well, immigration is actually a really good thing, and we're going to need it to support a dying population, and it's really important for our economy. And obviously, right-wingers don't cite the Putnam data to say, yeah, we need more immigration. We cite him because the majority of the data that he actually has in the middle of the E Pluribus Unum article or research paper furthers our case, which is that immigration causes people to shell up and to kind of turtle up and hunker down.
Now, now I'm going to interrupt because you're literally, now you've been talking forever. So
yeah, but all of it's important.
It's important, but it's mostly bullshit. So when you say the replication crisis, I have addressed the replication crisis before. It's a problem that has existed for a long while in science. It affects multiple elements of the sciences. It's not just social sciences, and it's been recognized as an issue since at least the 70s. So we are very aware of this problem. The way in which you go about fixing that issue is by using meta-science, using science to study science. That's why it's so important to cite, like I do, meta-analyses which show that gender transition betters the mental health of trans people, or meta-analyses in regards to systemic racism. That's why acknowledging the replication crisis can actually lead to improvements of the data. That's why meta-science is so crucial and so important, especially within the social sciences. So I have addressed that. Second of all, you
Yeah.
keep on bringing up the Putnam, or it's Putnam?
Putnam.
Okay.
Yeah.
You keep on bringing up the Putnam study, and that's fine. I've gone over that study repeatedly. And first of all, I did look at the study, okay? They used a painfully tiny sample size to a point that was barely
No,
even...
they didn't.
It was barely even statistically significant in which they went about collecting that data. And the other problem is that the reason there was more distrust was actually due to racism in the neighborhood. It was not due to the brown people that were here.
That's not what you're saying. This is why I wanted to talk to you. What you just said is literally not true, because they didn't find that it was because of the racism of like, and this is what you said to John Doyle. It wasn't racist whites, trying to get rid of blacks. They found that the social trust and the social networking of groups, social relationships, decreased with every single racial group, not just racist whites who hated blacks.
It's a
like
multi-layered,
you told John Doyle.
It's a multi-layered issue. So the racism plays a role, but also because there exists still levels of racism and biases in this society, you also see that minorities in general, like Hispanics and blacks, tend to have a lower level of trust in general. So if you're polling a large group of black people, your data will be skewed in showing a higher rate of distrust. And it's because, again, black people, Hispanic people, they tend to be less trusting in general. So you trying to use this to say that it's going to hurt cohesion is bullshit. Not to mention, there are other studies also, my friend, that have shown that exposure leads to less racism.
Okay, so I really, really am trying to give you the benefit of the doubt to say you read the study, because it is not that long. I think it's like less than 20 pages. But what you just explained is so ignorant of what the entire study was about, because the study itself
I'm literally reading it from Scientific American.
I know.
Please continue.
Okay, awesome. At least, like, if you read the first pages, you understand that Robert Putnam is doing this study and analyzing that the two, like, typical theories regarding social relationships with immigration and diversity and whatnot are actually both inaccurate. And that is the thing you're saying, which is what do they call it? I have to pull up the study so I get the right verbiage. But the theory that the more black people you're around, the better opinion of them you have. It's contact theory is what it's called.
Yes. The contact theory is correct, but I'm literally reading
He addresses contact theory. And then he addresses the opposite theory, which says that the more people or the more diversity you have, the less social cohesion and trust you have. And then he says it's actually neither. And both proponents of either side have plenty of data supporting either side, but he says that it is actually neither.
You have one study, which is this one, and this is why you're clinging to it like a child clings to his lost father.
You're moving the goalposts, Hunter.
I am not. You just said there. Hold on, wait. Am I going to get it? Wait.
Instead of admitting
Kai, you're not able to just talk and
actually
ramble the entire time. This is a debate.
I'm not rambling. All of this makes sense.
Do you know how a debate works? Do you know how a debate works? How you say something, then I respond,
with you
then back and
interrupting
forth?
me, that's the Twitch scene.
Well, I have to interrupt after you start rambling for like 15 minutes. So
just clearing up all the mistakes you made.
Somebody from Princeton University has already published a paper, which came out back in 2015, and it refutes Putnam's conclusions entirely. And they reanalyzed the same data set that was used by Putnam, and they found that when it comes to distrust and diversity, most of the distrust is expressed by whites who feel uncomfortable living among racial minorities. In other words, greater distrust may stem from prejudice rather than from diversity. Therefore, Putnam's conclusion that racial diversity leads to altruism and cooperation amongst neighbors was incorrect. If there is a downside to diversity, it has less to do with the behavior of racial minorities and more to do with how whites feel when living amongst non-whites. So that was one part of the refutation of this study. Yeah, this comes from Scientific American. You can read it, and it goes through and explains why the study was completely fatally flawed.
Like the general.
Sure.
I'm going to try for some reason, dude. I hate Brave browser. I never get the right links. I'm trying to pull up the Putnam study. Either way, I mean, you can say, and this is kind of the shifting of the goalposts. I want everybody to see it. It went from telling John Doyle that the Putnam study actually just proved that there were racist whites who were being mean. And then it goes, I mean, you're saying that it's all about contact theory. And
no, you're redefining what I said. I didn't say that. I said actually the reason they found greater levels of distrust was because of racist dipshits like you, John, which based on what I just read you, which was a study that reassessed this data, which you just said, what about the replication crisis? And I said meta-science is important. Upon putting this study through a level of meta-science, using using the same data set, they found that it did have something to do with racist whites.
That's the other thing about meta science. It's like all these buzzwords and whatnot
it's
that you can say. No, that's
you're actually retarded. Totally, I'm sorry. Holy fuck!
Don't interrupt already.
Whoa,
hold on.
Yeah,
It is a scientific buzzword. Don't act like it's not a buzzword. It's not a slur. It's not like fascist. No, it is a scientific buzzword. You say it because it's a scientific reference to an analysis of lots of data. And if you say meta science, it sounds like you're incredibly intelligent. But the meta science that you often cite is absolute garbage, Hunter.
I'm not incredibly
smart. So you can say all of these scientific words. You can talk about significant, or what a significant sample size is, or if it's statistically significant, the p-values. You made fun of those earlier because you don't totally understand or are able to interpret those. But in the same breath, you'll say like the meta science, or like, I have this thing that's been referred to by multiple doctorates. These are all buzzwords. These are all trying to attach credibility to your argument. But either way,
they're not buzzwords. No. I get to respond to this before you get to go on another tangent. So this is not a buzzword. I am citing something that is directly related and relevant to what I was just saying and to what and to what you already said. You said there is a problem with the replication crisis. I agree. The way in which you address that is via meta science. I'm not using buzzwords. I'm literally invoking the terminology used for certain scientific research, which fixes the problem that you initially brought up.
No,
this is clearly why you're taking a break from social media, obviously, because you're actually just deranged.
Wait, I'm taking a break from social media?
Are you accusing him of going on the Mormon trip?
You're fucking deranged. You're deranged.
Guys, I'm going on a 2-year mission to dodge Hunter.
Also, let it be known that no, not to dodge me, but it's just funny that you started with you don't even understand science to now when I'm actually invoking scientific terms. Okay. You're just using the buzzwords.
Hunter. I know what a meta-analysis is. I know what meta-science is.
Wow.
I know that word has an actual definition.
That's good.
All I'm arguing is that you're inserting it into the language and that you talk about things that sound, very scientific and very mature to add credibility to your side when I don't think you actually understand.
How does it add? It doesn't add or take away credibility.
I don't think you understand how the data is interpreted. I don't think that you could show me the difference between two significant I always forget this. I go to sig figs. Two significant values, right? Or a significant enough sample size. Statistical significance is not something you could tell me about. So when you say that sample size was barely statistically significant, well, hey, buddy, I took an intro to stats class. Statistical significance projects really well onto the rest of the study. So if you have statistical significance, you don't really need to go out and grab a much, much larger sample size because most of that is going to be reflected. That's what statistical significance is.
I know, and actually I'll even walk back what I said. I shouldn't have I shouldn't have pointed out that it had a small sample size because upon looking over it, I realized it didn't have a small sample size. So my apologies for getting the sample size thing wrong. Thankfully, that was more of a tongue-in-cheek side point, aside from the fact that upon reassessing this data, it found entirely different results. And it goes into explain why they came to such different conclusions because you have to understand how researchers have traditionally defined and measured the diversity. Okay, you're actually bothering me that you're calling this an argumentative tree when I'm responding to what you are saying right now. I'm directly responding to what you're saying, and now you're getting mad at me for directly responding to what you're saying. They go on to explain why this study, upon reassessing the Putnam study, found different results. Using the index, a community made up of 80% whites and 20% blacks would be considered equally diverse as one made up of 20% whites and 80% blacks. This is a problematic assumption. Think about the example of a neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. If I'm a white person living in that neighborhood, I'm much more likely to interact with people who are the same race as me. If I'm black living in the same neighborhood, the opposite is likely to be true. So they found the higher levels of distrust among minority groups. So if there's more minorities in that area, they might have higher rates of distrust, but the distrust is not there because the minorities are there. I'm not
hold
just
on.
saying buzzwords. I'm directly
link it in the
explaining
general
why
chat?
you're wrong. I put it
Can
in
you
the
just
chat
link-
associated with this. I have the pop out thing on Discord right now, so that's all I have
Where
right
is
now.
it?
Oh wait, no, never
Oh,
mind. I have
link.
this right here. Never mind. I have it here.
Okay, swag.
I'll put it in the general.
Yeah.
So when you say that I'm using buzzwords, though, it's a little bit ridiculous because I'm directly responding to your dictionary.
I don't think you understand what I meant to say with that. I think you're trying to make yourself sound intelligent by hailing to, aspects of data collection and whatnot.
You got me.
When I don't think that you are fluent enough in the actual research, and nor am I, by the way, nor am I.
So why are you trying to criticize
base your
me?
entire world. Okay, because here's the difference. I don't base, and this is kind of the thesis statement, I don't base my entire worldview off of data that I don't understand or can't interpret or need to entirely hail to other people to understand. And what's bigger than that, because I understand,
so what do you base your worldview
I don't need
on?
to, hold on. I understand that I don't need to be a mechanic to, get my car fixed or to like read something online about how to fix my car, right? I understand that. The difference is that person telling you how to fix your car is not telling you something that flies in the face of thousands of years of evolutionary history or the creation of human beings, right?
Wait,
and so
what
it gets
flies
down
in
to
the
the
face
idea,
of evolutionary?
and that's what I'm about to say.
Shit.
It gets to the idea where you and the data that you cite, this ultimate moral framework that comes from the data and the science, is telling you to do things that are contrary to your nature. Science could tell you that it would be healthy to, I don't know, slit your wrists. And if there was a meta-analysis, you would probably do it. If there was a meta-analysis of it, you may actually do it. I will not hail to data that I don't understand to tell me things that are just observably incorrect about the reality.
So facts,
you cannot
feelings
show
over
me,
facts.
You cannot show,
feelings over facts.
No,
feelings
literally,
over facts. That's what you're saying right now.
I am not an empiricist. I am a rationalist.
What does contrary
Absolutely.
to nature even mean? Are we a
Absolutely
slave?
rationalist?
Are we a slave to nature?
I don't think I should cut off my penis, and I don't care if there's a study that tells me I should. Okay. That's what it means.
Well, good thing there's not just one study. There's an entire meta-analysis on it.
Well,
so congratulations, dude.
A meta-analysis.
You keep saying, no, wait. Let me just back up for a second.
Actually.
You're saying I'm trying to
do it.
Hold on. Based on what you just said, okay, you're saying that I'm trying to make myself sound smart. No offense, but I don't have to try very hard when I'm talking to someone like you because you, like I already said, are actually fucking retarded. You're actually so stupid. So when you say it flies in the... When you say it flies in the face of, our nature, I don't know what that means. We're not a slave to evolution. We're not a slave to our nature. And there are plenty of things that happen in nature that are completely immoral or wrong for humans to partake in. So what does nature have to do with anything?
Hold on. So are you telling me you're not a determinist?
No, I haven't really dug super deep into all of that shit.
Okay, because if you do, the science and the data around determinism and biology and genes determining almost every part of your life and everything you'll do is actually really high, Hunter.
That's
so, maybe
so
you just
great.
haven't
So why the fuck are you able to?
enough.
Why are you able to appeal to nature? What does nature have to do with anything?
No, I'm making fun of you. So basically, there is an evolution. This is the thing that we observe, right? So I'm a rationalist before I'm an empiricist. I'm not saying that no data ever is good. I'm just saying when the data or the research flies in the face of something I see to be observably ridiculous, or supports something that I see to be observably ridiculous.
Oh my God.
Are you just going to interrupt?
No, because yes, I am. Because by that logic, if you, Mr. Rationalist over here, saw a study that said the world was round, you would start crying and seething and coping because what you can see is that the world is flat.
No.
From your perspective.
No. So again, I don't totally put off all studies, and
just the ones that agree with you.
I think you're no. I think you're Well, yes, but I think you're misunderstanding the idea of rationalism. Right? It's about seeing things in the world. Obviously, it's not about. I literally see that the Earth is flat. So any data that goes against that, it's like.
So what do you see in the world that flies in the face of science or vice versa?
I think that the idea of people chopping off their genitalia and that being supported by the data or science. I think people dressing up in the opposite sex clothing in order to remedy something going on in their head. I think all of that is kind of a weird response. I think it's an unnatural and unhealthy response to whatever is going on in their head. And so what I was mentioning was evolutionary mismatch. This is an observable phenomenon that we have some scientific data for, but ultimately is initially observational. So while we may not have a study that links, for instance, certain traits like the thrifty gene to the rates of obesity today, we certainly can say and we can observe, even if there's no data for it, that people living sedentary lifestyles and not exercising much and eating a lot more food, which is far more stripped of nutrients than ever before, may result in obesity. But it sounds like you wouldn't make that claim if there's not science and data to back it up. That claim makes sense.
There is science and data to back it up because science
Not
helps
really,
us
because
better
I've read the
understand.
research.
Because
Not
science
really,
helps
I've
us
read the
better
research.
understand in which the way the world works.
No,
and we also can understand better
the world.
We
If
can
it
also
was
have a
just
better
seeking
understanding of the
understanding,
medical
we'd be better
fields.
off.
We can also have a better understanding of the medical fields and the way that eating unhealthy food and living a sedentary lifestyle does contribute to obesity. But why do you keep bringing up the unnatural thing? Like, can you explain what you mean by this? Do you mean like it's unnatural against evolution, or what are you referring to exactly when you say unnatural?
Yeah, I think science makes lots of prescriptions that just fly in the face of what man should actually do.
Science doesn't make prescriptions.
Well,
science doesn't make prescriptions.
Okay,
science provides us data, and then you can make a
science
prescription
has
from there.
provided you. Science has provided, or I would say prescribed you, your entire worldview. You are nothing but a shell for the data to flow into and for you to parrot whatever was written in a Princeton article.
That's
you
very
have no
cute,
original
but
thoughts.
you're not actually
you hail the
answering
people
my
who you
question.
literally can't understand. So the answer to the question is, yeah, absolutely. Science makes prescriptions. I don't know if you remember, like less than 10 years ago, when the government paid scientists to do studies to find data, which if you want to find data, you'll certainly find it. You can make anything up in the field of science because people like you are too stupid to actually know what the data is saying.
Wow.
So scientists go out.
Feels over reals over here, calling me dumb. Very cute.
Doctors and dietitians.
Are you going to answer my question, or are you just going to go on a tangent?
I'm trying to get to it.
You sound like a shell of daddy issues right now. Like, just answer the fucking question.
You're a shell of data issues. So,
you know what? Props for that one. That was clever. That was clever.
That was kind of clever.
That was clever. Good one, man.
Epic fist bump. So, look, about 10 or 15 years ago, the government paid a lot of scientists and dietitians to do research and to find data which would basically validate their idea of the food pyramid. Now, there were cereal companies as well who would pay off scientists and the government, and they were all in cahoots to generate some profits. And what did we get? We got the government, state schools, and cereal companies profiting and benefiting from the idea that carbohydrates were the most important thing to put in your diet.
So you're once again misunderstanding how all of this works. This is why a peer review process is important. This is why having meta-science is important. And furthermore, this is why I don't just cite one single study that said this thing. This is why, again, we go via systematic reviews and meta-science, because you take into account the plethora of data and information, and you use that to come to a better, more strong and solid conclusion. I agree with you that not all studies are bulletproof and completely correct, and everything a study says should just be blindly followed. But I don't just blindly follow every study I read. Believe it or not, I do look into studies. I do research them. I have a general understanding of what the study says, why it comes to that result, why other studies are incorrect, and I'm able to go through that because I'm not just using one study. Your story about people getting paid off is irrelevant. You still haven't answered my question. Maybe it sounds like you're weaseling away from it. What is unnatural about being trans? What do you mean when you say unnatural?
So I think that it is an unnatural response to cut off your penis.
What does unnatural mean? It's outside of nature, or
contrast? It flies in contrast to evolutionary history, and I would say the design of mankind. But you don't agree with the design aspect, so I'll say evolutionary history.
So evolutionarily, it's unnatural. You're saying?
Yes.
Why does that make it wrong? What if for the sake of argument, I granted you that, you know what, it is actually unnatural because it doesn't line up with evolution. So what makes that wrong?
Well, this is where we get into a philosophical difference regarding natural law. So what I would stake out is that nature has within it, basically, it has guided us towards the best lifestyles, and it has guided us towards happiness. And if we follow our design, if we follow the natural law, that is the moral thing to do. It guides us ultimately back to Christ. You obviously have. Are you like a moral relativist? What's your moral compass?
Well, hold on. Before we get into the moral conversation,
that's what the conversation is.
Unnatural thing?
Like, I believe it's unnatural and wrong because it flies in the face of natural law.
But would you say that something is right if it does follow evolutionary naturalism?
It kind of depends. Like there's a lot of things that you could say like are natural because they get observed in nature, and that means they're good. Obviously, that's not really what we're saying. What we're saying is that we've kind of been designed to fit things pretty well, and the roles of
No,
men
there's
and women are
rape
one of
in
those things.
nature. That's like a pretty natural thing to happen, but you wouldn't say that was right or okay.
And you wouldn't say that homosexuality occurring in animals in nature would say that it's right either or natural. You wouldn't use that as an argument to say that homosexuality is natural or good, would you?
No, I would. Yeah.
You would? So you'll just flip-flop. You'll say that rape actually bad.
No.
And
my point is that we don't actually gauge what is good or bad based on nature at all. If somebody says,
but you call it natural. You call it natural.
If somebody
right?
says it's unnatural, if somebody says it's unnatural to be gay, my first pushback is no. Actually, there are homosexual behaviors in nature. So just the actual claim that it is unnatural. There are lions. There are dolphins, there are penguins, there are over 1,500. So there are over 1,500 animal species. I just listed you 3.
No, but the big one is bonobos. The big one is bonobos.
Animal species that indicate homosexual behavior.
You know what else those animals
that
do?
doesn't
they
mean
rape their children. So those animals rape
you're not
their
able to
children.
understand you're not even able to wrap your mind around this simple thing I'm saying.
I'm a primatologist.
So what I'm saying
is very well researched in this field.
Okay, very cool. So what I'm saying is that if somebody says it's unnatural and then I bring up the fact that it's actually not natural, that's the first step of deconstructing their argument. Then the second part is, even if it was unnatural, how are you determining that it's bad or right based on what we witness in nature? That's not a very good way to assess if something is good or bad, because if it was, you'd have to tell me that rape is actually okay because it's natural. It happens in nature.
Okay, so I think literally in what you've just outlined, we found the discontinuity in your understanding of what we refer to as natural. And it could be that, some people imply a lot more when they say natural. People imply
it could be that you're
goodness
bad at explaining it too.
Well, I haven't really fleshed it out, but I guess so. Or maybe you just can't follow. I think that's the more likely situation. But regarding like the idea of natural law, when people say homosexuality is unnatural, the claim is not that homosexuality never occurs in a species. Obviously, that is patently and observably untrue.
Okay, so
but in what you just said, you kind of provided the difference. We believe, we don't believe that rape is good. We don't believe that incestuous gay sex, like we see with bonobos, is a good thing, but we can observe it in nature. So things which are observable in nature are not necessarily natural things.
So how do you determine what is and is not natural?
Well, we have God for that, and God has provided a pretty good outline. We have a moral code that we follow. We have an objective morality and an objective law.
Got it. So this is where everything actually falls completely apart.
No, the difference is that you are actually stuck in this difficult spot because you're saying, well, homosexuality is natural because look, we're observing it in nature, and by arguing that, you also argue that rape is natural, that incest is natural. You argue all of these things. And that's not an argument that we have made. In fact, we think that these things are a gross deviation from God's plan. We believe that they are an awful misuse of reproductive organs, and we don't support that. But because you depend on what is observable rather than what is right, you walk yourself into this problem.
First of all, you're the one that told me you're a rationalist who determines things based on what you can observe. So that's not me, my dude. Second of all, I just said that the first step is if somebody claims it is unnatural, the first step is to just simply show them that it actually is not unnatural. It happens in nature all the time, just like rape happens in nature. Sure. The second part of the argument is even if it didn't happen in nature, that's honestly aside the point, because I don't know why we are deferring to nature to determine whether or not something is good or bad or should be done by humans. So no, I'm not saying, I don't even know what you're trying to claim that I'm stuck in. My argument completely holds up. If you are saying that being gay is unnatural, then I would first point you to the fact that it is actually, in fact, not unnatural. And then we would talk about why even gauging whether or not something is unnatural to determine if that thing is good is a weak, poor way of arguing. So that my argument is two-layered here, okay? So that's the first thing.
No,
second of all, what do you mean about God? What are you talking about?
We have different definitions of natural, and I don't think you're understanding. I don't think you're understanding what I'm talking about when I say natural. I've tried to clarify it, but I think we're just getting hung up on that.
Natural to you is whatever God says. That's. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Yes.
Okay, so what is natural then in your mind?
Because that's natural law. Like that is the Thomas Aquinas perspective of natural law.
So
The union between a man and a woman for the purpose of procreation, and that's why evolution kind of aligns with that. That's why we have sexual selection towards, the creation of a child. That's why two people having gay sex can't have a child.
but why do you keep on bringing up nature again? So this is why you're falling apart here, because now I can show you, no, actually, there are examples of chimps, for example, that engage in homosexual sex because it serves other purposes to continue their species. So I could push back on that just as easily with a natural argument.
They rape.
You're saying for some reason that because God says so, that makes it good or makes it bad. Why don't you just get off this natural crap and instead just say, God says it's bad, so therefore it's bad?
Well, it's kind of what I said. Like the natural law is created by God, so that would.
So
kind
why
of
is it
follow.
bad?
Again,
I'm ready to move on. Why is it bad then? Because if God says something is bad, what then makes it bad?
Hold on. After you guys talk about this, can we get through some super chats?
No. Not yet.
And this is like the most surface. This is the most surface level. God says it's good. So what makes it good? He is the arbiter of morality, my brother in Christ. That is like the easiest thing.
No, he's not. Why is that? Why then
Don't
is
take
he?
his name in vain.
Wait, why is he the arbiter of morality? First of all, you're deferring to a thing called divine command theory. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Second of all, that means that you have no moral code because now anything that your Sky Daddy says is therefore moral. Thirdly, I don't know how much Mormons follow the Bible, but are you aware of the verses in which God openly condones slavery? Is that moral?
Whoa.
Whoa! Biblical slavery.
Wait, what now?
Wait, what?
Biblical slavery is just like slavery in America.
No.
That's so true.
And
Hunter.
you go to the cliche
Great
response.
point.
Dude,
Whoa,
you're an
biblical
NPC.
slavery.
Holy shit.
Non-race realist, Hunter Avallone.
I'm an NPC?
Yes, this is the same argument I hear from
Look,
every dumb
well, maybe
motherfucker who gets
maybe
confronted
mirror
with
in
this
front of the
fact.
screen, mirror in front of the screen. So you're telling me that multiple Christians have told you that argument is bogus? Wow, that must mean we're NPCs, not that your argument is bogus.
They all use the exact same argument that's irrelevant.
So
you're saying, oh, wow, it's the same as America.
Exodus. You're talking about Exodus, where God is basically providing commandments regarding the treatment of slaves and how that should be designed.
He tells them where to get slaves.
So within the time, slavery is a very common thing. In fact, it's existed throughout a lot of human history. And obviously, like you understand, it's not the same as the slavery we had in the Americas.
Irrelevant.
Right?
It's owning another person as property. God says you can beat those people. And you're saying
God provides rules.
Wait, Hunter,
why is God's rule
slaves?
Why is God's rule providing information on how to get slavery?
Hunter,
on how to get slaves.
Keep throwing questions at him. I want to go.
Again, Hunter, within the context of Exodus, within the context of Egypt, slavery is something that's practiced then and in different parts of the world consistently. What God does pretty uniquely is authors in rules and boundaries for the treatment of those slaves, not to demean them, not to like totally dehumanize them, but rather to actually write in some better treatment of them. We find this all throughout Exodus. But every single time somebody mentions this, they totally pass the biblical message, which is, to me, there's no difference, bond, free, and white, black, whatever. You totally pass that message up because, well, the God of Exodus, the God of the Old Testament, wrote in the instructions as to the more fair treatment of slaves because slavery was something that was universally practiced at the time. You're trying to make it sound like God was the dude who created slavery. No, God was the guy who tried to help people practice it a little bit better because it was an awful practice of the time.
Did God condemn other common practices of the time, like eating shellfish or wearing mixed fabrics?
Oh, the Levitical law.
Did he? Wait. You're melting down in real time. Did God or did God not condemn those things? Yes or no?
So do you understand what like
you just got to talk. Now my response
I'll just say
involves a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Okay, so clearly then God was okay condemning and saying absolutely no to other practices that were completely common at the time. You saying slavery was common, lol, is completely irrelevant because God was able to say no to plenty of other things that were completely common at the time. Second of all, you're saying, oh, well, all God did is say how to treat slaves better. No, I will read you the verse. Leviticus 25:44-46 says, your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you. And then they say, you can't be mean to the Israelite slaves, but the slaves that you get from the nations around you, they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life. So how is this like a nicer, fluffier version of slavery?
Yeah. So, first of all, again, you're authoring in this rhetorical characterization. So just to see if you understand biblical slavery, how did it work? How did biblical slavery work? Could you explain the relationship of like a slave to the master? What was that like? Did they come across on giant boats from Africa? Did
That's
England
irrelevant.
send a lot of people on
What?
giant boats stacked next to each other?
Wait.
I just want to see.
Wait.
if you know what
No.
biblical
I'm going to
slavery
ask
was
you
like
an even more
whatsoever.
basic question. Is
No,
slavery
no,
or
answer
is slavery?
my question. I answered yours.
There
Answer
were
mine.
varying
Answer mine.
different ways that slavery was carried out. In the New Testament,
So
they
give
talked
me,
about
like, some of them.
So in the
Give me
New
some of them.
I'm trying. In the New Testament, they talked about people that would actually sell themselves into slavery willingly. But that's not what I'm talking.
Really?
Yes, but that's not what I'm talking about in this specific verse. In this verse is where God says that you can beat your slaves so long as they don't die. In this verse, God says that you can go out and buy slaves and keep them as your fucking property. That is not a willful decision to sell yourself into slavery. So here's my yes or no question for you. Yes or no, is slavery defined as owning another human as property? Is that
Dog,
the
I
most
don't even
basic
know.
form of slavery?
Let me pull up Merriam-Webster. Let me pull up my source.
You're looking like
Yeah,
a huge
I
cuck
think,
right now.
I think I would generally agree to that. What you
Okay,
kind of
so why
don't
are you bringing up
understand-
the fact
what you don't
that
understand
no,
and what you kind of
I'm not
dodge
quite
is that
done yet. Sorry.
slaves at the
Is
time-
Michael going to
slaves
step
at-
in for me too? I wonder. So, listen.
Bruh,
When you say
you took over my stream. There's nothing I can do at this
When
point.
you
The
say-
chat's just saying this was Hunter's stream. Though.
Yo, when you say what it wasn't based on race. They didn't go across in big boats. I know. And that's all completely irrelevant. We're talking about human beings owning other human beings as property. I don't care if they came over a boat or if they got them from the mountain across. It doesn't fucking matter. What matters is that you are claiming your God is the arbiter of morals, yet simultaneously your fucking God endorses slavery.
No. God put boundaries on slavery, and slavery was a practice that was done by all the humans at the time.
So
God
what?
often,
So
when
was
he
eating
sees
shellfish. You already acknowledged this.
God often, when he sees wickedness from people, places certain restrictions on them. When you talk about the Levitical or the sacrificial law, you're also kind of obfuscating because it's a different thing, right? Concerning slavery, he was trying to restrict the practice of and put boundaries on the practice of the human institution of slavery, which was something that obviously more of the Bible condemns. He's not condoning it. He's not saying, no, this is actually an awesome thing. He's just understanding, obviously, there's a limitation in like totally abolishing slavery all of the sudden, right? There's obviously a difference there. By the way,
So God couldn't just
the
abolish
reason
slavery?
I asked you,
Your all-knowing
the reason I
divine
asked
God
you
couldn't just abolish slavery?
Hold on.
kinda
The reason I asked you regarding like what slavery was like in the Bible, there were slaves who had literal rights. Like you mentioned people selling themselves into slavery. I wonder why they did that. If it was the abominable institution the same way it was in the Americas. And that's the problem, right? Is when you say slavery, you're using it like a buzzword because
No.
people think of people packed like sardines
No.
on boats to America. But that's not what slavery was like.
There
in
are
Exodus,
different
in
types
the
of
Old Testament.
slavery. There are different types. There were some slavery where, yes, you're right.
By the the Leviticus verse that you cited, sorry, you reminded me. That was literally about people who had lost wars. The kinds of slaves they were talking about there were literally people who had lost in wars between nations. They were more like prisoners of war than they were slaves.
That's
It's
so
just
much
a
better.
rhetorical
Yeah, you know what?
difference.
Never mind. Your God is actually the arbiter of morality now because
Are you just
God
not
was sent.
grasping anything?
No, you're just actually not understanding that all you're doing is giving weak-ass defenses for literal slavery. I don't care
You
if
don't
they're
understand
prisoners of
biblical
war. I don't care if they were prisoners of war. I don't care about virtually any of that. All I care about is that this is owning another human being as property. God said you can do it. God said your children can inherit these people as property. And God's laws give instructions on how to beat your slaves and that you will not be punished so long as they don't die after you beat them ruthlessly. Now, maybe for you, that's A-okay because you just have your faith in this imaginary sky daddy here. But for the rest of us people with brains, I like to call myself a rationalist, we don't actually need to appeal to some god as an arbiter of morality when your god is down with slavery.
Hunter, can I ask you a
Your
question?
god of the data is down with eating carbohydrates and cutting your penis off.
Wow.
But,
At least,
regarding
at
like
least the
slavery,
data doesn't claim to be all-knowing or the
slavery
arbiter
and
of morality. You're just
regarding
owning yourself
slavery
time and time again.
Can I go,
regarding
Kai?
yeah, whatever.
I just want that
Jump in.
because I gotta get in here. I gotta get in
Yeah,
here.
yeah. You're right.
So-
You're right.
Hunter, you're calling basically Kai's god immoral, correct?
Correct. And that's
So
just the
how-
beginning of it.
But how can you have morality if you're an atheist? Isn't you believe in nothing, right? So how could you have morality?
No,
What is
not
your
at all. This is a
What is your response to that?
Yeah, this is
That's all in the
this is the cucked position that without God you can have no morals. This is literally untrue. There are people throughout all of society who don't believe in God but still are very moral individuals. There have even been, I hate to say, I'm sorry, Kai, studies, which have shown that atheists and Christians are equally as moral. The way in which I define my morality is based on 1, does this action cause harm? And 2, does this action result in the betterment or the worsening of human well-being? It's a thing called secular.
Suicide is moral.
It's a thing called secular humanism, and it's a way that you can go about assessing.
Humanism.
Yeah, it's a way that you can go about assessing if something is moral or isn't moral based on the harm it does, based on if it leads to the betterment of human flourishing, and that, you know what, is actually a better moral system, and I'll tell you why. You can go to virtually anywhere in the world, okay? Whether it's a primitive tribe in mud huts or if it's a fucking developed first world country and ask them, would you prefer to be alive instead of being dead? They will all say yes. So now you have a foundation to further figure out how to better all humans so that they can continue living. People choose to live. Life would rather be than not be. That is a moral foundation because from there, you can build up the best ways to then achieve that end. More people agree with that, whereas for Kai's position, you'd have to go around the world, convince everybody that your slavery, your down with slavery God is actually the one who they should base their morals on, which is never going to fucking happen. So I actually have a more solid universal moral foundation than Kai does.
All right, before
so-
Kai responds, does Augie and Tom want to get in this real quick before he goes? You guys got anything to add?
I'm not a debater. Like, fuck. Like,
Salvo's gonna clip you. He's gonna make another Twitter video where he's gonna shit on me for bringing you on again.
I don't know.
It's gonna happen. Okay, Kai, go. Then I want to get to some super chats and we can start talking again.
Tom,
already
give us your
ranked.
intellectual
Yeah.
take on
He's
religion.
deafened. He deafened.
He's deafened?
Yeah, he's
Oh.
definitely.
Tag him to
He's
undeaf.
just checked out.
Yeah, so regarding see, this is kind of like the answer that natural law gives. I'd actually encourage you to look into it. It's pretty sweet. It's that people have within them kind of like this moral compass that guides them towards what's right, which is why we are guided towards reproduction. We're guided towards improving ourselves generally, and it is the society and the prescriptions of evil scientists that tell us to basically destroy our lives, eat a lot of carbohydrates and whatnot. I thought it was funny. Because I don't know if we're wrapping this up or not. I did think it was funny that we've moved all the way to God because you didn't really like talking about how scientists were paid off to publish data that allowed for the total change in the reorganization of the American diet in schools. And this is not just a minor thing. This is like the government itself getting the science and the data
I
from,
addressed
you know,
this. I
No,
did
not
address
really.
this. Yes, I did.
not
I said
really.
that this
Not
is
in,
why
not
it's.
in any significant way.
Yeah, I did. Maybe you just weren't listening.
Okay, what was your
okay?
response then?
Is the lead paint still in your walls? You good over here, buddy?
Yeah,
We
what's your
already
response?
addressed this. Why don't you address now my
No,
claim
what's-
about objective morality?
Well, okay. So that, yeah, true. I should finish up. Sorry, I get onto a lot of tangents. Hey, regarding the morality, like I just said with natural law, we have within us kind of this moral compass that God has written into us that guides us to do good, and that's why there's kind of this rationalism. People are guided to do good things generally and to seek out God. I think it was Thomas Aquinas who had this conflict, and he said, well, how can we say that God wants all to like strive for Him? Like how can we confront that if we haven't taught the Bible, if we haven't taught Christian virtue to every country in the world? Well, it's because there's an objective morality and there's a sense of goodness written in us already, and that is the natural law, which means that people generally, you may call this secular humanism,
But people generally should understand murder is wrong. And people have a general sense within themselves, regardless of any cultural conditioning, that murder is wrong.
Sure.
And that's the argument
but
of natural morality. That's the argument of natural law, is that we have within us a guide towards what is right and a guide towards living the way that Christ intended.
Sure,
and to
sure,
seek
sure. And
him out.
I think I can understand what you mean. Like, we do all have kind of like a natural conscience and perception of what we deem to be right or wrong. But there's two things. One, why do you determine that to be God when it could literally have come about via evolutionary means without a God? And two, you say that we all have God's morals written on our heart. You're right that a lot of people do think that murder's bad, but there are also plenty of cultures that don't. There were cultures back in the day, like the Aztecs, who would sacrifice babies to their gods. Where was God's moral law on their heart?
It was a rejection, and it was a total kind of swallowing up of violence. They rejected a Christian God. They rejected that kind of part of their lives. And honestly, I don't think they found anything good from it. You're saying like, well, so there are people who think murder's okay. Yeah, I'm not disputing that. There's serial killers, right? Obviously, people can deviate from the things that God has written into their heart, from that inclination. I'm not saying nobody deviates from it. It's very obvious people deviate from it. I'm saying that they shouldn't because that's been written within them. So you haven't really proved that, well, they had an inclination towards murdering people. No, they just created a justification socially or religiously or politically.
They never heard of the Christian God, right? If it was an Aztecs, it would have been a long time ago in a primitive culture that they were very isolated. How would they have even heard of the Christian God? It's my understanding that they did believe they were doing the moral thing because they thought that they were appeasing their gods via child sacrifice.
You probably think you're doing the moral thing, but we see that to be patently untrue, right? So again, I'm not saying people can't justify bad behaviors, can't justify sin or anything like that. I am saying that regardless of the justification, they are deviating from what was written within them. And that remains true for the Aztecs as well, for that natural law.
So according to your standards, though, with the divine command theory, is murder okay if God is okay with it?
Yeah. No, yeah, there's justification for murder.
So
absolutely. I mean, you would agree with that
not
too,
killing,
right? You'd
not
agree
killing.
With that.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm being specific.
You mean unjust murder?
Unjust killing of another human. Yeah, like if
so
God
that's where
said
the
that was
paradox
cool.
is. If God commands murder, then it's not unjust murder.
Right, which is
Or
why
God commands killing.
which is why you're literally like harming your own argument, because you say we all have this written. Oh, yes, you're saying we all have this written in our heart that we generally understand murder's bad, but now you're telling me right now that you actually don't understand murder to be bad, because if your God okays it, you're fine. Where's your moral compass? Where did it go?
Then it's killing, not murder. It's not unjust.
God commanded his people in the Bible to murder women and children. Was that just?
Yes.
So the murdering of infants was just.
Yes, from the Christian perspective.
So you've literally proven my point that if you are subscribing to this bullshit,
I've been entirely consistent.
No, you haven't, because you're saying that this
Exodus. You're talking about an Exodus where the women
Samuel.
and children I think that's the same one. Basically, people rebel against God all the time. This is what happened in the Old Testament, right? Is so the people in Egypt are taken out. That's what Exodus is. It's the story of Moses guiding the people of Egypt out of bondage. And so he guides them out. God frees them and whatnot. And then they end up rebelling from God. Moses goes to the mount, and he doesn't come down. And the people start creating these false idols. They create a golden calf. And God is like, okay, what the F? You guys are falling away from me. I literally just saved all your lives. And there's verses that talk about this. And so God's wrath, he is a very righteous wrath in this moment, and absolutely does something that a secular humanist would deem terrible. But what is more terrible ultimately, and what is more damning, is the rejection of God. From an eternal perspective, rejecting God is far worse than, dying. Like it's a far greater consequence than your own mortal life, than your own mortal existence.
Right.
But if you don't see it
these are
from
a ton
the
of
Christian,
presuppositions that you need to
if you don't see it
into.
from the Christian eternal perspective, if you don't view it that way, then everything you care about is mortality. That's all you care about.
I care about
what happens in this life.
First of all, you should too, because apparently, according to your doctrine, it's this life that we're going to be judged for. So you should actually care about how things go in this life. Second of all, yeah, the reason I
No,
care about
yeah.
human well-being in this current world is because this is the only life that I know for sure I have. And I want to make that better for myself and people around me. You are buying into some presupposition that maybe there's this eternal afterlife where God is going to be there and everyone's going to be, you know, up on the clouds. And that's now clouding your view of how to make moral decisions here on this world. Lastly, I will go ahead and read you what this says here, just so that we can be crystal clear that Kai,
All right,
the guy
let's
who
hear
says
it.
that God has morals written on everyone's heart, is now saying that this is okay. So let's go ahead and read this. Now, therefore, heed the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel. Now, how he ambushed him on the way, blah, blah, blah. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. So there's God's
Real.
command for you.
Yeah, let me read a verse too. I
And you're
wanna read
saying
a
that's
verse,
the
too.
arbiter of morality.
Hold on, I want to read a verse too. This is a good one. I gotta pull it up from my gospel library app.
Okay.
It's a real good one.
verse.
Yeah, here it is. First Nephi chapter 4, verse 13. Behold, the Lord slayeth the wicked to bring forth his righteous purposes. It is better that one man should perish than that a nation should dwindle and perish in unbelief.
So killing kids is okay, according to God.
I'll just read that verse again. So, but anyway, I think
Your,
I've been
your
entirely
verse has not
consistent.
done anything except for showing that, of course, your dumb God is going to try and justify his dumb actions later on in the Bible. Yeah, no shit.
God, you need to be secular humanist. You need to be a flipping secular.
I mean, I would
humanist.
hope that God, who apparently created the entire universe for us humans and who wants to have a personal relationship with us, would actually, yes, care somewhat about human well-being. I don't think that that's a crazy thing to want or desire.
So the greatest care for human beings and the most important thing to them and to God, to us, to everybody, is that eternal perspective, right? And so anything in mortality pales in comparison to the grandness of the coming to God, right?
Which
and
is
the
an
rejection
assumption.
of God pales. Well, yeah, but I'm trying to communicate my worldview, right? I'm not saying I'm going to make you a Christian. I'm elaborating on the consistency of my Christian worldview. So the way that you say it is from your secular humanist perspective of like, the only thing that matters is this life, this secular humanism, blah, this is the worst thing ever. The way I'm saying it is all of those things, the murder, the whatever, the killing of even the cattle, all of that pales in comparison to the ultimate reality, which is the truth of the gospel and the acceptance of Christ.
So let me get this straight. All that matters is that you believe in God and believe in. I was raised.
I'm not faith alone.
I was raised
Alone
non-denominational, so I would assume
die.
it's also having that belief in Jesus Christ. At least from my perspective, it was. I'm not as familiar with Mormonism.
I think it's a combination. It's faith and works.
Okay, cool. I just
right.
I don't know why you would go to heaven for doing the works of what your God commanded you if that work is slaughtering infants.
Well, you kind of just said it. It's like what God commanded you.
Right,
So,
which is
I
why
don't
you
know.
actually have.
We're going.
Well,
we're
I know,
going
and
around in
I'm ready to
circles.
be done with the
Yeah.
convo too. But I just let me just close with, this is the problem with your worldview. You don't have a moral foundation. Your moral foundation is whatever God says is therefore moral. So now you're in a position where, well, murder is generally bad, but if God says it, it's actually okay. You don't have a moral foundation. It's nothing but a flimsy little thing that you're standing on. Whereas I'm able to say, does murdering infants do good or bad? Does it lead to a net harm on people or a net positive on people? Well, it leads to a net harm, so we should probably start there with not doing it. I'm able to cohesively explain why I think murdering kids is bad, and you're able to, or you're not. You're able, you have to fall back on, well, God said do it, so therefore that makes it good.
Yep. So then my closing statement would basically be, people can pay off scientists to do bad data, which led to the deaths and the obesity epidemic that we're seeing right now. Hunter hails to that data without being intelligent enough to interpret it, other than reading the abstract, which often conflicts with the data within it. Just to like close up the prior point. And then regarding the morality, my morality is 100% consistent. The only reason Hunter is really staking out this claim is because he believes that at any day God could command me to just go out and slaughter innocent people and children and whatnot, which really, hasn't happened. There's a reason that people talk about the Old Testament God as being a more wrathful and maybe a more violent and justice based God, and that's absolutely true. And while it is true that my morality is staked entirely on what God commands me, because he is the ultimate arbiter of truth, he created truth, he created the idea of it, he created the mind with which you are arguing to me about what your subjective truth is, I find it incredibly unlikely that God will basically fly in rebellion to his own laws. And he very, very
already
rarely,
has.
if ever, does that.
He already has. Yeah.
Well, I've hosted a poll. Hunter, you can retweet it in a second. I can retweet
Wait,
it now. It's on
I
my
have a
Twitter.
question. I actually have a question for Hunter though,
Let's hear it.
because like I'm listening to this right, and why wouldn't that be the case though? Why wouldn't Kai submit to God and take God's order if he believes, and I believe too, because I'm also a Christian, right?
Same.
That God is, the like supreme, like,
Arbiter of
authority,
justice.
He
creator
would.
of everything, right? If you first believe that God created everything and is in charge of everything, why would you not then submit to him no matter what? Why would you not believe him to be the ultimate arbiter of truth and morality?
You can believe that all you want. The problem, again, comes when you are willing to submit to your God, which, one, we have no way of actually empirically demonstrating when God is the one giving those commands. What does it mean for God to speak to you? Usually it's like a feeling you have or this thought that you kind of attribute to God. We have no consensus on what it means for God to speak to you. We have no idea what that even fucking looks like. But it's fine. Of course he's going to follow God's laws if he believes in God, but he just contradicted himself even there. God would never go against his own truths and his own laws. He does, repeatedly. If he says, "Thou shalt not murder," and then commands his people to murder, then he is going against his own commands. So, and lastly, you say, why wouldn't he follow? Lastly, why wouldn't... Okay, and I'm sorry, maybe if you want to redefine the word murder, but for me, slaughtering infants and nursing children, that kind of falls in line with murder, And then lastly, you say, what's stopping him from actually going out and doing that? Truthfully, nothing. There is nothing stopping him there. One of two things would happen. Either one, he would say, there's no way this is God, or some kind of justification as to why he shouldn't obey God there, because he actually is appealing to some level of morality outside of God, or he would go about this via actually acting out violently, which, again, I hate to say it, I'm going to bring up the S word. Studies have already shown that people who subscribe to religion are more likely to then carry out violent and aggressive actions if they believe those actions are justified according to their religion.
All right.
That's the only question I had.
So I think we all know. I hosted a poll. I linked it in Hunter's chat. I don't know what's going to do it, so you can promote it so your people can vote on who they think won. But I think we all know the true winner. It's Turkey Tom. He got the fuck out of here. I don't blame him. Just
Where'd he go?
I don't know. This kind of devolved, and I just thought we were gonna have a nice conversation. I thought we were all gonna be best friends. I had a bunch of funny questions written out.
I was like, I can't be mean because I don't want to scare Hunter off of the Michael Alberto show, but it looks like he was coming for the blood sports.
He
Need
was.
the content. Yeah.
So you were afraid of me ambushing you with Nick. It seems like you kind of want that now. Do you want to get that set up?
No.
We can have you.
And I'm not afraid of it. I don't want you to
motherfucker.
become that dude.
Well, no, I'm not going to become that dude. But what if here's the deal? I don't think you can refuse. We'll get you and Destiny versus Hunter and Kai. Would you do that? I can
Versus
host it.
Hunter and Kai.
Versus
Hunter
who?
and Kai.
Me and Destiny versus who?
Dappo.
Nick and Kai versus Hunter and Destiny. I misspoke.
Maybe.
You know what I'm trying
That
to
could be
say.
fun.
Maybe.
You
All
can
right,
always hit me up about that another time. Yeah, you can always just shoot me a message if you want. But thanks for having me on. I appreciated the conversation.
We got to get to the super chats real quick though.
Oh, sorry.
Got to sift through these real quick. So these people have been waiting a while. I couldn't get in because you guys were going at it. Let's read through these real quick. Shit, I don't know which one we're starting at.
I'm going to mute myself for just a second because I want to read something from my chat. Hold on.
Okay. Which one?
Somebody said something very, very dumb in my chat. Let me go ahead and respond to this.
Wait.
Oh, hold on. Someone said something really dumb in my chat. Hunter is proving the Bible true when it describes there will be mockers and scoffers of the word. Also, when it says professing themselves to be wise, they've become fools. Isn't it convenient that the Bible has a verse that says if you don't believe this bullshit, then you're a fool? It's really convenient. I'm actually going to write my own religion, or even better, I'm going to write up a big thing about how trans people are valid and then say, the sciences have shown that the fool will deny this in his heart. How convenient, right? Then anytime somebody denies it, I can just make fun of them and say, look, haha, my thing was proven right. That's the biggest cope I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, go fuck yourself, loser. All right, I'm back on their thing now.
Yeah. It's a grace period. Real.
My YouTube isn't working. Somebody sent me a YouTube super chat. Well,
Yeah,
it was regarding. It was from this guy named Rice, and another person asked about why won't you debate Sean Last?
Sean Last. Oh, isn't he the one who's
He's a big race realism guy.
he's the race realism guy? I can look more into him to figure out if I want to schedule a debate with him. But yeah, I don't really.
Yeah.
I don't just like
say-
drop everything to debate people usually. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait,
and
I have a
and hold
question.
on. For people in the audience, that's not a dodge. That's totally okay to say. Like, I want to check out some of his stuff first. People pester me about Adam Green, and I know like nothing about him. So just give me some time. I'll look into him, and I'll see if it would be a good debate. But I will say, you should probably not debate Sean Last because he actually like has a really high degree of statistical fluency, understands what the studies are saying, and is probably going to BTFO you. And it probably won't be a fun debate to watch, or maybe it will be. So, but maybe that'll make you want to debate him more. Who knows?
Hey Michael, where can I get the poll so I can link it in my my chat?
It's on my Twitter at Brown Shinji.
Okay.
So let's get to that. Cheese Chomper asked that for $3. Rice on YouTube asked for $5, and Goofy Nibba for $3 says Hunter should watch the hour-long response Sean Last did on one of his debates. Everyone in the chat should as well. This guy's a joke, and almost everything he says is incorrect. Meta-analysis can't fix issues where fields of papers are shit.
Ooh.
Miles Tails Groiper for $3, enjoying the debate. Thanking you for Hunter. Why won't you debate Nick?
Wait, is that what the chat says?
That's what Miles Tails Groiper said.
I've already answered this question enough. I'm trying to go now, so no comment.
All right, Donald J. Trump for $5. This homo Hunter would rather submit to the government over God.
Because at least I can demonstrate that the government exists. Yes, good point, buddy.
$3 Hebrew GB's quote-unquote Hunter is a pretty ironic name for a guy with pussy, for a pussy with prey eyes.
What's with prayas?
The Canthal tilt. You have a positive Canthal tilt.
Okay, cool.
Goofy Nibber for $3. Hunter just doesn't get it. Effect sizes with a p-value below 0.05 only have a 30% chance of replication. The reason Hunter relies on quote-unquote studies so much is because he is too stupid to read through these things, and he needs to gish gallop.
I didn't gish gallop a single time. I was trying very hard to stay on topic, actually. Second of all, no.
We just got to God somehow.
You got to God, Kai. Do you want to go back?
No.
You said that it's natural because God said this. That's what you said.
You kept going.
So if you want to maybe you need to rewatch the conversation. I understand that it's hard to keep memory straight when you're huffing glue, but
I mentioned God.
When I go forward,
I mentioned natural law and I mentioned God. But here's how the conversation went. We talked about studies, sources, and data. And right when I started bringing up some of the real world examples, you said, "Well, what is natural? Well, let's talk about like what natural is." And then I mentioned God, and then you said, "Well, hold on, but God, tell me about God." See, because I have an argumentative tree about slavery. So let's talk about God. That's what
it's
happened.
not an argumentative tree. It's that there are arguments that I
totally
use when I'm
argumentative
arguing with dipshits like you. That's not an argumentative tree, okay? So when people say I gish gallop, no. Gish galloping is when you spam a bunch of like unrelated points in one giant conversation or in one spiel. That's not what I did. I tried very hard to stay on topic. The conversation moved towards the direction of religion, primarily because Kai is the one who originally brought it up. And as far as the Hunter relies on studies because he's stupid, yeah, usually the smarter people actually rely on the data, while it's the dipshits who rely on nothing but their feelings. So, good point, Chatter.
Feelings don't care about your facts.
That's what you demonstrated this whole time, Kai. Yes.
Yep.
Anonymous for $3. What's the demographic composition of Hunter's neighborhood?
What the fuck?
Is that like a dog?
Yeah, I live at 1, 3. No, I'm just kidding.
1, 2, 3.
Hunter comes from the hood, all right? Don't fuck with him.
I live in a suburb, and it's actually pretty diverse.
Interesting. NBA Groiper for 5. Tell Hunter I thank him for being the first person to red pill me, which inevitably turned me into a Groiper.
Very cute.
That was actually kind of similar with me.
Yes,
I watched your videos growing up, and you had those videos about like homeschooled kids versus public school kids, and I really enjoyed those. I think I messaged you one time. Let me pull up my Instagram DMs. It's probably still there. I messaged you about doing a certain video. And then how far we've come, Hunter.
I
The
know,
paths crossed for the
seriously.
first time.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that only some of us were able to mature. It's really
The
sad.
14-year-old Kai. No, I eclipsed you is what it was. I evolved past you. It says, first, I would like to say I love your videos and agree with them on a large scale. I was wondering if you could check out some of my videos and possibly make videos about the topics I talk about, like your stupid teen trends video. And that was on Instagram because I was making skit comedy. And that was on December 28th, 2016.
Wow.
Man, you know, there's a multiverse. I'm sure you believe in that, where Hunter checked out Kai Clip's Instagram videos and became radicalized, and we became like.
Or I saw
became
Kai
a
Clips and
Mormon.
was like, holy shit, I don't want to end up like this autistic weirdo. I better just completely avoid that.
And then you.
That's the other multiverse, okay?
The other multiverse is you become a leftist sooner. No, let's not speed up. Let's not speed up this tragic tale. I prefer thinking about the potential.
I think there's a possibility for a Groiper arc. I mean, you saw what he said about those primitive African tribes.
Yeah, the primitive African tribes. Hunter, there are no white primitive African tribes. What white primitive tribe is there in the world, by the way?
That currently exists or has historically existed?
That currently exists. Like what white primitive tribe could Matt Walsh have gone to?
He probably could have just not gone to a primitive tribe at all. It has nothing to do with the racial makeup of the tribe. The only reason I brought up white tribes was because if you're going to a primitive tribe for certain information regarding complex social issues here in America, that's kind of dumb. And it doesn't matter if the tribe is made up of black people or white people. All I was saying is that my point stands, and it has nothing to do with race.
Okay.
Alrighty. What else is there for super chats? Let me go through these. Meta-analysis don't work. This is Goofy Nibba for 3. When the inputs are terrible, it doesn't address publication bias, and analyzing a bunch of studies which don't replicate doesn't help your case.
I was going to say that. Yeah, like in some of these meta-analyses, all the data that goes into them is like awful. Like, it's terrible data. But anyway.
Both you,
but it's a meta-analysis.
You're definitely revealing how you don't understand this. The point is literally try to reach a more sound conclusion based upon whatever best data we have access to. And if that data isn't great, the meta-analysis can still sometimes bring us to a better and more solid conclusion.
Okay, so if you make a cake and all the ingredients are poop, and you decide what that poop tastes like, have you made like a good cake?
I mean, I don't know. When's your birthday?
Yeah.
December 17th.
All right, I can make
2002.
I'll make you a poop cake then if you'd like.
What sussy wussy. Okay. Next super chat.
All right, next super chat and then I'm out of here.
Let's see, make sure. I think we got to them all. Let me just go through these one more time, making sure I didn't miss anybody. No, I think we got to them all. So, or at least the ones all relating to you.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on, Hunter. I wish this could have been what it was initially planned to be, but I think there was some good.
I had fun.
Yeah. Oh no, we do got some 2 super chats. Lonesome one for $2. Hunter's come a long way, but I don't think he realizes how little he seems to be persuading his detractors in spite of his data. What could have been an issue? What could be the issue at hand? Because it's definitely not the people. And then Lonesome one for $1. How does Hunter plan on winning over regular people?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by regular people. If they believe that they're moral, but they also follow a God who's cool with slavery and infant murder, then, I don't know how normal those people would really be able to be considered.
All right. We got Salvo Pancakes in the live chat. He's asking, how was Augie's performance? So, Hunter, what do you think about that? How was Augie's performance?
Yeah, how did I do in this debate?
Augie, you did incredible, man. It was unmatched.
You.
I couldn't stand any ground.
Thank you. I love to hear it.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for the convo, Michael. I'll see you later, Kai, and peace out.
Good to talk to you, man. See you.
That was fun. This is exactly why I wanted to talk to Kai, because I knew the dude was an idiot. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you get notified when I drop a new video.